I'm Steve the Unimpressed, and since it's caused some confusion to many of you, I'm here to explain why gamers are so upset with this Sweet Baby Inc. company that you had never heard of until about 5 minutes ago. Sweet Baby Inc. and a number of similar consulting companies popped up in the video games industry about half a decade ago after another industry controversy, referred to as Gamergate, that you probably still haven't heard of. You don't need to understand that controversy to understand this one. To summarize it briefly, a bunch of gamers raised some concerns about journalistic integrity in the outlets that reviewed new video games, and those outlets responded by loudly telling anyone who would listen that all gamers, their own target audience, were sexists. This resulted in the modern societal perceptions of gamers as a little bit sexist, and games journalists as less credible than an email from a Nigerian prince. Sorry, Zoomers, you'll have to look that one up. The consulting companies promise to help developers who hire them create games that portray a larger variety of people in a positive way, theoretically leading to better sales and a lack of backlash from offended groups. As Sweet Baby Inc.'s website said, at least as of March 26, 2024, I haven't bothered to check it since, our mission is to tell better, more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching the video games industry. In other words, they insert the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda into the games that they work on. Those are the same statement, I just ate the word salad instead of spraying it at you. Recently, Sweet Baby Inc. caused themselves some problems. Some gamers had noticed a pattern with games that Sweet Baby Inc. and similar consulting groups had worked on over the years. The stories and characters in these games were often low quality. The low quality elements seemed like things Sweet Baby Inc. would have recommended. Their participation in a project became a widely accepted indicator that a game would be bad. Then, one gamer called Cabrutus did something absolutely unthinkable. He made a list on the online service Steam of all the games Sweet Baby Inc. had worked on. If you aren't familiar with Steam, it's basically the Amazon for purchasing digital downloads of video games. Cabrutus hoped this list would help other gamers who'd had negative experiences with Sweet Baby Inc.'s projects avoid wasting hard-earned money on their other projects. Of course, this information was publicly available, much of it from Sweet Baby Inc.'s own website, but this would make their involvement easier to find for a Steam user who knew where to view the list. When Sweet Baby Inc. discovered the existence of this list, they tried to get Steam to remove it and ban the user who'd made it. Steam refused. So, Sweet Baby Inc. went running to their friends in the games journalism outlet Kotaku. They published an article that referenced the list of Sweet Baby Inc. games on Steam and its associated chat server. Kotaku tried to convince gamers that Sweet Baby Inc. aren't responsible, in whole or in part, for the poor quality of the games that they work on. Gamers who saw this article had a two-stage reaction to it. The first stage was to make an observation along the lines of, Kotaku still exists? I thought that rag went under years ago. The second stage was to find and follow the list of games on Steam so that they could avoid wasting their previously mentioned hard-earned money. Games journalists reacted to this by accusing gamers of engaging in a, what was the line? Targeted harassment campaign against marginalized individuals. Gamers were unimpressed, for which I commend them. If that is still confusing, allow me to use an analogy based on my own industry to explain. The innards of it won't really map one-to-one onto the events that we've just described, but the end result should be understandable if you've ever had to buy your own groceries. What Sweet Baby Inc. and similar companies don't understand is that results matter. They've been producing poor results, and they are now suffering the consequences of bad performance. I'm in the trucking business, where it is well understood that results matter. The following stories are entirely fictional. Any similarity to real persons or events is purely coincidental. Let's say a grocery chain with a warehouse in Detroit bought a load of imported broccoli that just came off a ship in New Orleans. None of their usual refrigerated carriers are available to move the load, so they give it to a load broker to find a truck. Load brokers are third parties that match truck operators in need of freight to move with freight owners in need of trucks to move it. None of his usual refrigerated carriers have trucks available either, but he got a call earlier from a brand new owner-operator who just got his authorization. He has a used rig and a refrigerated trailer, and he needs a load to move. The broker decides to take a chance on this guy and gives him the broccoli load. And here the future forks. On the first path, our budding entrepreneur gets his trailer set to the right temperature, goes to the port on time, and gets the broccoli loaded. They seal the trailer, and he heads north, diligently monitoring the trailer to be certain it stays at the right temperature and whatever else reefer drivers have to monitor. I don't actually know. My company doesn't run refrigerated freight. He gets to the grocery warehouse in Detroit a little before his appointment time. The guards check him in, verify that the trailer was still sealed when he arrived, remove the seal, and get him to a door. The broccoli gets unloaded. The grocery chain is happy. The broker is happy. Local bodybuilders can get at least one of their 2 favorite foods, and the people of Detroit can shop with the confidence that if they want to be a bit gassy tonight, they can be. Our new owner-operator now has a 100% record for reliability with that broker and that grocery chain. That's not a very deep record, but it's a start, and they'll be more willing to give him freight tomorrow than they were 2 days ago. On the second branch, things go a little bit differently. Our driver gets the broccoli picked up as before, gets sealed, and gets moving. Since he has more than enough time to make it to Detroit for his Monday morning delivery, he decides to take a longer route and pass through the southern bit of the Chicago area where his shiftless idiot cousin lives. He gets there Sunday morning and parks his truck on an industrial backroad near his shiftless idiot cousin's house. Although he's heard reports of rising cargo theft incidents around Chicago, he doesn't bother to padlock his trailer, figuring that nobody wants to steal a bunch of broccoli anyway. He calls his shiftless idiot cousin, who picks him up for a visit. Once they get to the shiftless idiot cousin's house, the shiftless idiot cousin breaks out a brick of cocaine. A little voice at the back of the driver's mind points out that it might not be wise to indulge in this just at this moment, but he ignores it and proceeds to lose track of the next week. Meanwhile, at his truck, some cargo thieves noticed him leave. They cut the seal off his trailer, throw it down a handy storm drain, and open the doors to see what's inside. Broccoli was not exactly what they were hoping for, but they figure at least they can eat it. After all, it's one of only 2 foods eaten by bodybuilders, and those guys are ripped. They cram several panel vans full of broccoli, eat their fill, and then go home, leaving the trailer doors open. For the next week, they have all the broccoli they can eat, mild gastrointestinal distress, and a bit of cash from the sale of suspiciously cheap broccoli to people who don't ask inconvenient questions. Monday is unusually hot and humid. The aged refrigeration unit, designed to control the temperature of a medium-sized insulated room, fails to cool the entire southern shoreline of Lake Michigan. It burns through its fuel and stops running. On Tuesday, staff at a nearby warehouse called the local police to report the truck. Technically, trucks aren't allowed to park on this street at all. Mostly this is not enforced because nobody bothers to report trucks that park there, but 2 days with the trailer sitting wide open is too much. Unable to locate the driver, the police tow the rig to an impound where it sits in the sun and heat for the rest of the week. Finally, sometime on the following Sunday morning, our driver recovers enough from his drug haze to recall what he was supposed to be doing. He goes in search of his truck, eventually locates it, and pays to get it out of the impound. The phone he left on the dash has a blizzard of increasingly agitated emails, voicemails, and text messages from the broker. Without reading most of these, he continues to Detroit to make the delivery. It'll be late, but better late than never, right? The broccoli arrives at the warehouse in Detroit early Monday morning. It is a week late. The refrigeration unit has no fuel. The trailer is not sealed. Half of the broccoli is missing. The other half is moldy. Our driver is shocked to learn all of these things. The grocery chain rejects the load, refuses to touch the broccoli, refuses to pay him anything, and blacklists his fledgling business. Because his truck runs on magic instead of diesel, and he has a lot of shiftless idiot cousins, he proceeds to repeat this performance with a dozen more grocery chains around the nation. Word about him gets around, and a number of grocery chains preemptively tell brokers they won't accept any load that shows up on his truck. When he learns of this, he calls the one of many shiftless idiot cousins who happens to write for the Washington Post. The Washington Post runs an article the following day accusing grocery chains of a targeted harassment campaign against marginalized individuals. The individuals being marginalized in this scenario are apparently truckers addicted to cocaine, a group that is realistically extremely small and traditionally gets marginalized by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration or local police forces long before they are actively noticed by grocery chains. The article causes a brief surge of mild outrage directed at grocery chains. However, people familiar with the facts soon point out that the grocery chain's behavior is entirely reasonable. They want to avoid doing business with somebody who has a track record of showing up a week late with half a load of moldy broccoli. This is what has happened to Sweet Baby Inc. They consistently show up a week late with half a load of moldy broccoli. Nobody wants to own a week late half load of moldy broccoli. The only people who don't understand that nobody wants to own a week late half load of moldy broccoli are Sweet Baby Inc. and others engaged in the same work. The diversity, equity, and inclusion activists who make up these consulting groups have a fairly specific view of gamers and the communities that gamers create. They don't like them. They want to remake gaming and gamers in a way that they find more to their taste. Kim Belair, the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc., indicated as much in a speech she gave at a conference which is available on YouTube. In it, she says that the industry still thinks of straight white males as the core demographic, and these people will accept any story, but only if it is presented through a character that looks exactly like them. She compares gamers to a picky baby that will only eat one type of food and refuses everything else. And the gaming industry caters to these desires to guarantee sales. In her view, the games industry needs to stop caving and start making the baby eat its broccoli. Unfortunately, this isn't accurate. Widely beloved diverse characters already existed in video games. What Sweet Baby Inc. and their compatriots insistently shovel into the baby's mouth is the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. Under this, it isn't enough to have diverse characters in video games. They must be portrayed as good and right and strong and positive at all times, without any flaws. What Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't know, but gamers do, is that this type of portrayal makes these characters extremely boring. Further, if the character's actions are presented as good when they are clearly wrong, the characters become despicable. That kind of portrayal, inclusive or not, doesn't land with audiences and is responsible for some of the most high-profile flops Sweet Baby Inc. has been involved in. As it turns out, Kim Belair's analysis is precisely backwards. Gamers care very little what the protagonist looks like, but the story had better be good. I still wish that Sergeant Johnson had gotten his own game. Kim's picky baby analogy doesn't hit the mark either. She thinks that she has presented a variety of new options to the baby. In fact, she has presented the same option over and over, and it's something that the baby doesn't like. The baby isn't picky. It just doesn't like moldy broccoli, which only proves that it has higher cognitive function than you, Kim. Try giving the baby some applesauce. Or, if you're absolutely certain that the baby is a future bodybuilder, maybe some puree of chicken since you let the broccoli go moldy. To be clear though, I've never had an infant to care for, and you should check with somebody who knows what to feed babies before feeding one anything that I've suggested. If a baby magically appears in my truck tonight, any food that I provide to it is going to have to be cleared by my mom first. I'm still alive, so she must know. That concludes this trucking industry explanation for why gamers are so angry with Sweet Baby Inc. in particular, and with DEI peddling story consultants in general. Hope that makes sense. Goodbye, and God bless. Maybe some puree of chicken, since you let the broccoli